Good morning. My name is Jason Tillman. I currently live in Westchester, Ohio. I'm currently working with Booz Allen Hamilton on a Air Force contract, and my title is data architect. Yeah, so I think my most relevant position is probably my last one. I spent 8 years at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, leading a team of database and ETL developers. So a lot of my day-to-day work was not only on the development side, but a little bit on the management side and a little bit on the um, architectural side as well. So, the technology stack that we worked with there was mainly the Microsoft BI stack. So I'm really well versed in SQL Server integration services, SQL Server reporting services, Microsoft Power BI. But I've also used in a prior life, I've used tools like ClickView, for instance. If you look back at my resume, you'll see that I think it was maybe 10 years ago or so, I was working in ClickView 9. So I'm pretty familiar with that ecosystem as well. It looks like, from the job posting, you guys are actually looking for someone who's kind of got a breadth of knowledge in a lot of these different ETL and reporting tools, and that certainly is something that I think that I bring to the table. Like I said, I've got strong skills in Microsoft Power BI, but in my current position, for instance, we're using Apache NiFi to do ETL, and so I feel like I've done a really good job of picking up that skill. I think that's really one of my strengths, is being able to pick up a new technology or a new tool quickly, and be able to apply a lot of the years of industry knowledge that I have to really figure out how to use that tool and use it right. So I've done ETL and that kind of type of work for the last 10 years. I've even done some recent work on a project at Cincinnati Children's that dealt with Kroger data, which I'm hoping maybe we can get into, either during this or, maybe in an in-person or over the phone interview. So, yeah, I think that my Cincinnati Children's experience is probably good, but the stuff I'm doing at Booz Allen is applicable as well, I believe. Yeah, so like I said previously, I have some really strong experience in SQL Server integration services, reporting services, and analysis services. Um, Specifically with integration services, I've done work, moving hundreds of millions of rows out of databases like an Oracle database. I've written some C# code. I'm really strong actually in writing script components within data flows. To source data from a lot of different sources. I for instance, wrote an ETL where we were pulling data from a API and then kind of running it through a data flow there, and doing a bunch of transformation to it, and then actually putting it back up into a different system, using an API, all within a SSIS data flow, which I thought was really cool. A lot of that was custom source and custom destination written in C#, which used the REST Sharp API to do a lot of that work, which made it pretty simple. I'm very familiar with pretty much all of the integration services transformations at this point. I've been working with it, like I said, for probably at least 10 years. So, I have a really strong background in ETL using integration services with reporting services and analysis services. Reporting services, again, I think that's one of my strong suits. I've spent, like I said, about the same amount of time I've been doing integration services stuff, working also in reporting services, creating all different types of visualizations, including things like charts and graphs and drill downs and just really kind of nice graphical representations of data. So I feel really like I have a really strong background in reporting services as well. We've done some work. I've done some work in SQL Server analysis services in the past. My last job, we were creating SSAS cubes to try and give clinicians ad hoc access to research data, which was in its infant stages, but it was certainly something that I designed and came up with. I have I'm pretty rough as it comes to like MDX, for instance. I haven't written a lot of MDX recently. I actually got a training course in MDX about 8 years ago. So I'm familiar with MDX. I've written some MDX in the past, but it's not certainly my strong suit. Although I'm pretty confident I could pick it back up again without a whole lot of issue. I think that's it. Like I said, I mean, I feel really, really comfortable and strong with the Microsoft integration services, reporting services, analysis services parts of the BI stack. Yeah, so data modeling, I certainly have a lot of strong experience there as well. At Cincinnati Children's, I was responsible for coming up with, some data warehouse design specific to projects that were dealing with, patient registries of kids with specific diseases. So these were star schemas, which at certain points we snowflaked it, to give I think a little more um, context into things like patients, for instance. We snowflaked things out there to allow for like location based searches and things like that. But I've certainly done a lot of, like I said, a lot of work with data warehouse modeling. OLTP modeling, I've also done some work in. My last job again at Children's, I also helped to design the data capture system that we were using for those patient registries. So those patient registries were 150 plus sites throughout the world actually going in at certain time at different times and entering in form data about their patients and about patients' visits and about their outcomes and things like that. I'm familiar with I'm actually familiar. I think it goes up to all the way up to like voice cod normal form when you're doing data modeling. Which at least from a theoretical perspective, I'm familiar with. However, I think practically speaking, most people don't go beyond third normal form, and you can even make a case to go lower than that at certain times for things like performance and other things. But I think that those kind of compromises come later on down the line. As far as data modeling tools go, I'm pretty strong in doing data modeling in Visio. Unfortunately, they took out the fantastic reverse database engineer and forward engineering stuff in the recent Visio versions. So sometimes I'll throw it back to like I think it was like Visio 2012 maybe or something where they had that functionality in there. So occasionally I'll work in that, but I know that certainly newer versions of Visio you can do data modeling as well. But it's limited to like the Chen crow's foot notation, which I'm very familiar with as well. So I can certainly do that type of data modeling without a problem. Yeah, so I think probably the number one issue that I've seen come up over time is trying to do like pre-optimization, right? So my previous response I mentioned, there were potentially arguments for not going to third normal form for certain things, and so a lot of the times, I felt like I would be arguing with app developers as far as when you should flatten and when you shouldn't. So things like, if you look at the previous example where I said that we snowflaked out, the connection with a patient dimension to a location dimension, right? So that's two different tables, and you could make the argument that, um, it would make sense to potentially just put the locations directly in the patient table in a star schema, for instance, which would be flattening it and taking it out of third normal form and putting it in second normal form. I think that's always a pretty big debate between app developers and database developers. It's something that I've encountered pretty much everywhere I've worked with. Outside of that, I think you can just get into a lot of different I, for lack of a better term, I guess, what is the best way to relate your different entities, right? So I think one of the things that you have to really have a good understanding is an understanding of the business and an understanding of the data that you're actually modeling. And so I think a lot of the times, um, that's probably one of the biggest problems is you don't have all the information or you don't know the domain very well. And so I think for me, if there's a lot of focus on data modeling here, I think for me one of the biggest things is getting up to speed with the bit on the business as quickly as possible so that I can be effective at coming up with strong and correct models. At the very beginning of my career, I actually did intern at Kroger's for about a year. And so I'm actually familiar with some of the things that go on there and the operations and things like that. And so I hope that would be something that I can lean on, if I were to start in this position, to kind of help me get up to speed on the business as quickly as possible so that I can really, develop strong data models. So I don't have a ton of experience with, cloud databases. I actually have a certification at Amazon's AWS as a solution architect, so I'm familiar with a lot of the tools that are out there in AWS, and I know that Azure is very similar with like Cosmos DB and Azure Data Factory, things like that. I'm familiar with the products. I'm familiar with what they do. But I don't have a lot of practical experience using cloud databases currently. I think that is certainly something that I'm looking to get experience in as quickly as possible. It's one of the reasons I went and got AWS certified, is because I felt like I was kind of lagging behind and needed to um, get my skill set up to snuff, so that I was marketable in the industry and had some desired skills. I think that the fact that I was able to very quickly, get an AWS cert and understand that technology and understand what was going on there speaks, to my ability to learning that technology and learning it quickly. So if there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing with cloud databases, and it sounds like based on the job description that those cloud database stuff would be in Azure. That is certainly something that I feel very confident in being able to learn quickly and you know uh, be effective at as quickly as possible. Yeah, I think I have a lot of different interests, right? I think first and foremost, I'm a huge soccer fan. I love watching English Premier League on the weekends. It's been something that I've really enjoyed, and it's been sad, with everything that's been going on, that it hasn't been on this, for the last couple of months, which has been, kind of crappy. So first of all, I'm definitely a sports fan. I'm a soccer fan. I'm NFL football. I love NFL football. I love playing. Uh, Fantasy football. It's pretty huge for me as well. It's pretty enjoyable. So those are kind of some of the things I like doing. Outside of those things, I love watching movies with my wife. Um, we recently built a house, and we built this really kind of cool movie room, which we spend a lot of time in, which has been really cool. And then recently I actually got into for lack of a better term, I guess, modding arcade machines. So I recently bought a Cruisin' USA arcade game and have been working on modding it to allow it to play other driving arcade games, which has been really interesting. It's a really fun thing. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been just it's been a blast to try and understand some of that older technology, and it certainly has been a blast trying to modify it to get it to do what I want it to do, which was really cool.